This fight is sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The 10-point must-scoring system is in effect. The winner gets the 10 points, the loser 9 or less.
75, George Foreman stands as one of the most respected legends in the history of boxing. A man who lived 2 lifetimes inside and outside the ring, first as a fearsome heavyweight champion and later as a smiling preacher and cultural icon. Over the decades, Foreman has never been afraid to give credit where it's due. When he talks about boxing, he speaks not with bitterness or ego, but with genuine admiration for those who inspired him, challenged him, or helped shape the sport he loved. In countless interviews and conversations,
well, they're trying to psych each other out as Arthur McCanny makes his announcement.
Foreman has shared names of boxers who earned his deepest respect. These weren't just great fighters, they were great men, fighters who embodied courage, skill, and heart. So today, we look at the 10 boxers George Foreman called his favorites.
Had to go 10 rounds one time, and that was against Everett Martin in Tucson, Arizona.
1. Muhammad Ali. There's no surprise in starting with Muhammad Ali. The rivalry between Foreman and Ali gave the world one of the most legendary events in sports, the Rumble in the Jungle, in 1974. But what's often forgotten is how much Foreman truly admired Ali, even after suffering one of the most heartbreaking defeats of his career. Ali was more than an opponent to Foreman. He was a teacher, a rival, and ultimately, a friend. In interviews years later, Foreman often reflected on the wisdom hidden behind Ali's showmanship. He was the greatest, not because he could hit harder, but because he could outthink you, Foreman said.
Is you colored?
First time we see you in a long time.
He beat me because he was smarter than me that night. Their bond deepened long after the fight. Foreman spoke of how Ali reached out to him during his spiritual rebirth in the 1980s, encouraging him on his journey. When Ali passed away in 2016, Foreman called it the saddest day of my life. 2. Joe Frazier. Foreman's battles with Joe Frazier were brutal, unforgettable, and defining moments in both men's careers. Their first fight in 1973 ended quickly. Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times in 2 rounds to become heavyweight champion. But even as the referee waved it off, Foreman's respect for Frazier began to grow. In an era dominated by personalities like Ali and Foreman, Frazier was the quiet warrior, relentless, humble, and proud. George often praised him as the engine of the golden era of boxing, a man who never backed down from anyone.
Down for the 4th time in the fight. George Foreman is doing to Joe Frazier what he did as a 19-year-old.
3. Sonny Liston. Before George Foreman became Big George, there was another fearsome heavyweight who captured his imagination, Sonny Liston. As a young fighter, Foreman idolized Liston's aura of danger, his quiet menace, and his crushing power. Liston represented raw intimidation, and Foreman modeled his early style after him. The cold stare, the short answers, the psychological warfare. Yet as Foreman matured, his appreciation for Liston grew deeper. He saw in him a man unfairly judged by the media, misunderstood by fans, but revered by fighters. 4. Joe Louis. If there was one boxer George Foreman considered the ideal role model, it was Joe Louis. Known as the Brown Bomber, Louis was the embodiment of dignity, discipline, and destruction in the ring. Foreman admired Louis for his poise and technique. Watching old reels of Joe Louis was part of his boxing education. Joe Louis didn't waste punches, Foreman often said. He threw only what mattered, and everything he threw was perfect. What Foreman loved most about Louis wasn't just his skill, but his humility. He represented an era when champions carried themselves with grace, even under pressure. When Foreman made his comeback in the late 1980s, many saw shades of Joe Louis in his demeanor, calm, smiling, and unshakably confident. That was no coincidence. Foreman openly said he modeled his attitude on the champion he grew up idolizing. 5. Evander Holyfield. The 1991 fight between George Foreman and Evander Holyfield was a battle between two generations, the ageless warrior versus the young champion. Holyfield won by unanimous decision, but Foreman walked away full of admiration. What struck Foreman most was Holyfield's discipline. Even in the heat of battle, Evander maintained focus, control, and faith. Their fight became a symbol of sportsmanship and mutual respect. Foreman often compared Holyfield to greats like Louis and Frazier, men who gave everything without arrogance. "He was built for greatness," George said. "Inside that body was a heart that never stopped believing."
Holyfield also showing more hand speed.
6. Mike Tyson. Though they never met in the ring, Foreman had immense respect for Mike Tyson. He often said Tyson brought excitement back to boxing, becoming the face of ferocity in the 1980s. Foreman admired Tyson's blend of speed and strength, a combination few heavyweights could match. But beyond his physicality, George appreciated Tyson's vulnerability and humanity, something he understood all too well from his own past. In interviews, Foreman defended Tyson during difficult times, saying, "People forget he's just a man. We've all fallen and had to get back up to Foreman." Tyson symbolized redemption, the journey from chaos to control.
Sheer instinct right now, this crowd can...
And here is where corners save you or lose you. If Jay...
7. Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes was one of the few heavyweights Foreman never fought, but always respected deeply. Known for his legendary jab and technical mastery, Holmes represented everything Foreman admired about boxing's strategic side. Foreman admired how Holmes handled being in the shadow of Muhammad Ali and still carved out a legacy of his own. "He had the toughest job in the world in following Ali," Foreman remarked, "and he did it with class." Holmes's longevity also inspired Foreman's comeback.
Larry Holmes says, "Take that if you want to taste some of that."
8. Lennox Lewis. Foreman always viewed Lennox Lewis as the perfect blend of power and intellect. Lewis's ability to stay calm, adjust his strategy, and dominate an opponent without unnecessary risks impressed Foreman greatly. Foreman praised Lewis for his professionalism and the way he carried himself outside the ring. "He was never rattled," Foreman said. "He had that quiet confidence you can't teach." In Foreman's eyes, Lewis represented the evolution of heavyweight boxing, a man who brought refinement to the art of the knockout.
There's a little bit of urgency now.
Lewis, every now and then, whenever he drops his hand,
9. Archie Moore. Archie Moore, the old mongoose, was another figure Foreman deeply admired. Known for his incredible longevity and defensive genius, Moore was the type of fighter George aspired to be: intelligent, patient, and deadly when needed. Foreman often mentioned that Moore showed what experience could do in the ring. "He didn't waste energy," Foreman said. "He made you fight his fight." Moore's ability to stay relevant well into his 40s gave Foreman hope during his own comeback. He often cited Moore as proof that greatness has no expiration date.
Came in with a beautiful right-hand shot, and Moore is down again. 2 minutes to go in the round.
10. Jack Johnson. To George Foreman, Jack Johnson was not only a boxing hero, but a historical one. As the first African-American heavyweight champion, Johnson faced racism and hostility at every turn, yet he never bowed to anyone. Jack Johnson didn't just fight men, Foreman said. He fought a whole system. Foreman admired Johnson's courage and intelligence. He outsmarted everyone, Foreman said. He played the game on his terms. Johnson's confidence, charisma, and defiance inspired Foreman to embrace his own identity as a strong, proud, independent fighter. He saw Johnson as the blueprint for every great heavyweight who came after. George Foreman's career wasn't defined by one era or one victory. It was defined by transformation, from fierce to humble, from angry to joyful, from fighter to teacher.
Here he comes. He misses with the right. Now it's just the left hand. Look at him. Bang. He just catches him.
For George Foreman, boxing has always been more than a sport. It's been a journey of the soul. Champions come and go, he once said, but the lessons they leave behind, those never fade. And in the story of George Foreman, those lessons still echo, punch by punch, round by round, and heart to heart.